Welcome to Global Focus. Today, I am your host, Reverend Dr. Sharri Johnson, and I have a wonderful treat for you today. Our guest today is another Reverend Doctor because Emerson's been busy graduating people. Reverend Dr. Lynita Mitchell-Blackwel, and she is unique in that not only does she have books and classes and all of that sort of stuff, but she has this attitude about coaching business from an intuitive approach that just astounds me, just plain astounds me. So please help me welcome Reverend Dr. Lynita Mitchell.
Hi, it's so great to be here today with you.
Well, it is wonderful to have you. Now, I'm going to brag about you a little bit before you talk, but I just thought I'd let him see your pretty face.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Lynita is the intuitive business coach who leads her clients to live life on fire, and fire is in all caps with 6 exclamation points, for the ultimate successful life with peace, joy, and fulfillment. She has an award-winning law firm, there you go, and a publishing house, and is a #1 best-selling author, CPA, and an ordained New Thought minister, and a doctorate now. She is recognized nationally as an outstanding community leader. Her latest book is called Live Life on Fire. Please help me welcome Reverend Dr. Lynita Mitchell-Blackwel.
Well, I
Thank you so much for saying yes when I invited you.
Oh, thank you for having me, and thank you for that incredibly generous introduction. Thank you.
Well, it's just wonderful to have you here, and I'm going to just dive in and ask you questions because I'm fascinated to hear. See, I learn a lot from this show because I don't know anything about the ministries that are going on, and people just, for some reason, they like to talk about what they're doing, you know. So what is the #1 reason that people are dissatisfied with their lives, even when they're outwardly successful? This is a really great question.
Yes, so the #1 reason is because they keep looking externally for something that can only come from inside. We have been taught by very well-meaning people our entire lives that if we work hard, we will be successful, and that success means money, clothes, house. It's always stuff. Now, some people do take the next step to include family in that. Sometimes health, right? But most of the time, we're still looking externally. And when we are looking externally, that means that someone else has control over what we feel. And so, if we really want to be happy, satisfied, content, that's never going to happen unless we turn within and focus more on being joyful, which is the step beyond happy. And I tell people all the time, joy is an inside job. That is something that you have to decide for yourself. Now, for me, joy is peace and fulfillment. It is gratitude. It is thanksgiving. It is truly understanding that no matter what is going on, that there is always something to be grateful for. And I have total and complete control over that. No one can take that from me.
That's pretty good. I like the no one can take that from me part, especially. Now, what's the difference between, I hear people say it all the time, and it never occurred to me to ask this question. What's the difference between happiness and joy? And how does that difference impact performance?
Absolutely. So when we're thinking about when we're happy, the sun is out. I'm outside enjoying the great outdoors. I'm with a girlfriend and we're out shopping. It is all based upon some premise of something external. So does it mean that when you're outside and it's raining, you're not happy anymore? If the air is so accurate that you can't even stand in it, you can't be happy outdoors. If your girlfriend misses her flight and y'all aren't able to get together, or you don't have money to go shopping, does that mean that you're not happy? Well, then the answer to that is yes, because that's how you define happiness, right? There always has to be something else external to you that's going on. Joy is knowing that whether I can be outside and it's raining or it's sunny, I am grateful to have the opportunity to be outside, that I have these senses to know the difference between the feeling of rain and the feeling of sun. That I am here and alive and well enough to have an appreciation for those things. That I can be joyful by myself. That even if my bank account has no positive integers, it's zero. Of sometimes it might be negative, no matter what is going on, that I can still be grateful that I know that I can have another way to make money, that there will be another time where there will be an opportunity to shop. This is going beyond the thought that there's something other than right now that I have to be worried about. We spend so much time worried about next and strategizing for something that may never happen, that we totally neglect this moment right here, right now. In my seminary, the Kairos Institute for Progressive Spiritual Study, our tagline is the opportune time is now. It means there's nothing else. Because if we don't take care of this moment right here, tomorrow can't come. Not that it won't, it cannot. Because without right now, there can be no tomorrow. And so right now, we have to be joyful. And joyful encompasses happy. That's great that you're happy, but we're looking for something that's sustainable. And that is
So what I'm hearing you say is that joy is happiness on purpose and in the present.
Yes, with a cherry on top.
With a cherry. I like that because, I have for many years when people have asked me what when someone says, what would you like prayer about? I always say, I want to stay constantly consciously aware of the presence of God in me, through me, and as me. And that's my definition of joy.
I love it. Yes, because no one can take that from you. That is something you determine yourself. And no matter where you are mentally, emotionally, spiritually, or even physically in the world, that resides within you. Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that people don't think about that you could have all of the money. You could have 92 fancy cars. You could have a 106 bathroom house. You could have all of the clothes that have ever been created. You could have a kitchen full of every delicacy in the world and still not be happy, because joy is what makes happy happen.
Yes. And, I came to this because I'm a practicing attorney and I have high net worth clients. And sometimes I am sitting with them and they have everything money can buy, but they are miserable. And so I knew, I was like, it's not that I don't want nice things. It's not, I do, right? What I'm saying is I want so much more. And this is something that money just can't buy, because if it could, there would be so many more happy people in the world, joyful people in the world.
And that's true, because when you ask somebody to visualize a joyful moment in their life, it never involves things. The one I remember is when my first granddaughter was like 3 months old, and I was holding her on my lap, and I held her up, and for the first time, she smiled at me, and I could see in her face that she knew who I was.
Oh, that is so sweet. Yes.
What on earth could you buy? What on earth could you make that would ever replace that?
Nothing.
And when you can get people to think of one joyful moment in their life, well, then it's easy to multiply that.
Yes. Yes.
It's just that some of us have a hard time remembering that we ever had joyful moments, much less what they were.
Funny you say that. I have been doing a lot of research around this happiness and joyful experience, right? And there are stats that say that literally 45% of Americans do not remember what happiness feels like. And this was pre-pandemic.
Well, you know what? I want to go to Bhutan. You know why I want to go to Bhutan?
Why?
Because they have a national happiness index.
Okay, I like that.
Because in Bhutan, happiness is more important than productivity. Yes. Happiness is more important than money.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, the first time I ran it, this isn't a new thing.
Yeah.
They've had it for a long time, but I just became aware of it now 4 or 5 years ago, and I just wanted to jump up and down. Can you imagine? There are so many countries where what are they concerned about? They're concerned about the balance of power, meaning who has more guns and
And that's what it is.
they're worried about the gross national product. They're worried about the national debt. They're concerned about protecting the borders. Do you think there's anyone living in Washington, D.C. who cares whether or not anyone in America is happy? And in Baton, that's a critical issue.
Yes.
For our people to be happy.
Yes. Well, they understand that if their country is going to be productive and their people are going to operate at optimal force, then happiness, joy, peace, that has to be part of the equation.
It does. And what isn't part of the equation is being a world power.
No.
Of course. We don't want to be a world power. We want to be a world happiness. We want to be a world's joy.
You know what's funny about you saying that? And all of us know it, but we try to not know it. Being a world power, that is temporary. It shifts over time. 1,000 years ago, the United States didn't even exist. And in 1,000 years, our country will not be the world power. That's just the way it rolls.
That's evolution. Evolution is not an option.
No, it's not. But we have control over where we will be consciously, right? And that's what we want, to be joyful. We want to be at peace.
I had my very first Science of Mind minister. He's retired now the second time. It might take this time, but I'm not sure. It usually takes 2 or 3 tries. But the first thing I heard him say that just made me sit up and pay attention was that his dream was to address the United Nations.
Oh, wow. I love
and
it.
his speech would consist of 3 words. He would walk up, he would square his shoulders, he would look them all straight in the eye, and he would say, "War is obsolete." And then he would turn around and walk out.
But he's absolutely right.
He is. And you know what he followed that with, which I think probably the folks in Bhutan have got this one down cold too. He said, we would be a much happier world. We would be much happier people, more peaceful people, if we could just keep one truth in the front of our mind. And that truth is what you're talking about. That every single being, not just people, every living thing, is in every moment doing the very best they can do with the wisdom they possess in that moment. Now, that might not be good enough to suit me or you or somebody else, but if it's the best they can do, it suits God, and it's pretty much as good as it gets.
And that's right. That's exactly right.
So that's the difference between happiness and joy. Happiness is joy is a God quality.
Yes.
And happiness is what we do with it.
That's right. I like that. Yes. Because that's absolutely right. Joy is a never-ending sustainable energy that flows through us, in us, and as us. And it powers everything. So all of our hopes and our dreams, our interactions with other people, even the moments that we're at rest, it allows us to rejuvenate and to heal.
I think joy is what makes it possible for us to actually know who we are.
Absolutely.
You know, actually, because most people don't really know who they are.
No.
If you ask them who you are, what will they tell you? They'll tell you all of the things they do.
Yeah, that's
They'll
right.
tell you where they came from.
That's right.
They'll tell you the things they like.
That's right.
But way, way, way down in that list, will they maybe in a year or two say, and I'm a perfect expression of a sparkling idea in the mind of God.
But they would have to get to the place where they stopped commingling their identity, self-expression, and self-esteem with the idea of worldly success.
Yep.
Because we were all given a similar checklist when we were small, that if you work hard, you make money, you will have stuff, and then you'll be happy. And it's time for us to take that list and say, I know that the person who gave this to me meant well, and I appreciated them, but they did the best they could with what they knew at the time, and I know better now, and put it down.
See, that's the thing. I know better now.
I know
And
better.
the plain truth of the matter is, if you're awake,
Yes,
then every single moment you know better than you knew the moment before.
absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
am just so tickled to have an attorney who is conscious, who understands that joy is an essential component of being alive.
Yes.
I'm just thrilled. Tell us more. Tell us more. Tell us. Here's one. Why would you want to live an excellent life rather than a perfect one? And how does that impact your brand or how you show up in the world? Now, I want you to answer this question twice. I want you to answer it for your own self, and then I want you to answer it for the person you're talking to, the client that you're talking to.
Absolutely. So
that's who we're talking to, is the people who are looking for you.
Right. And so it's actually one answer, because one of the things that I had to do when I started doing this work is to integrate my personality. Because I used to have the person that showed up here and the person that showed up there. And not only was it wearing me down, exhausting me, but it was very confusing for people who would then meet me in a third place and be like, who am I meeting today? You know? So here is the response. The difference between the excellent life and the perfect one. So perfection, if you look at the definition of that, it means meeting standards or exceeding them. And I got to ask this question: who set the standard? Because for most of us, it wasn't us. And when I was talking about that checklist, somebody else gave us a checklist and said, here, if you do everything on this list, you are going to live happily ever after. Well, the problem was that we did everything that was on the list that was given us, and ever after never came. We were happy temporarily, and then we learned that it kind of went away, and we had to do some other things to get that feeling back again. And we wound up on this hamster wheel with no clear way in sight as how to get off. I know that happened for me. I was told that if I did well in school, that I would get a good job and I would make money and get enough expertise to start my own business, and I would be successful and I would live happily ever after. Well, I checked off everything, and ever after did not come. And it got really serious, because in trying to achieve that perfect life, I literally almost killed myself. And as God does, He gives us all these warning signs with this magnificent body that He has given us, right? When my hair started to fall out, I just started wearing wigs. And my skin started to deteriorate. I just wore a whole lot of makeup. And my nails split literally down, straight down, right, the middle. And I just started wearing acrylics. And it was not until the one thing that I just could not plaster over, my daughter found me passed out in the middle of the floor, exhausted. And she was only 6.
Bless her little heart.
Yeah. And I am so grateful that she did not comprehend the enormity of what had just happened. She thought that I was just sleepy. And so she took one of her little blankets from her bed and put it over me and kissed me on the forehead and said, "Good night, Mama." And I did not have the strength to get up. I said, "Good night, baby." I could not put my child to sleep because I was so twisted up into somebody else's idea of what my life should look like. And so after a number of other health challenges that landed me literally in the hospital and on some very serious medications, I said, if you get me out of this, God, I will get the help I need so I can turn this ship around. And so He did. Thankfully, He did. And I started working with a performance coach, Reverend Rowena Silvera Beck. And she had me write down everything that I was involved in. And we had streamlined that because we had 7 pages, single space. And so we had to get it down to 2. And that is when I realized that I was living off of someone else's list and I would have to create my own. And that's
Wait. Back up and say that again. That living off of somebody else's
yeah,
list.
I was living off of somebody else's list because somebody else gave me the checklist. And it was somebody who loved me. And when I say somebody, it's the community, right?
Uh-huh.
Because we go to school and our teachers are grading our paper. We're out in the community serving and someone is correcting us and showing us where we should be. These are well-meaning people who have given us a list, but it was never supposed to stay our list. We were supposed to modify it as we needed. And that's what the shift from perfection, somebody else's standard, to excellence. Because now the standard is grace. The standard is having enough grace to know that it is going to be a sliding scale depending on where we are in our lives. Because what is excellent today for me was not excellent 20 years ago. And probably it won't be in 20 years in the future.
Well, I got to tell you two things. One, grace is my favorite God quality.
Yes.
It is my favorite. And the second thing is, the thing I like about excellence is that it includes the word excel. It means that by definition, it's never going to be as good as it gets.
Absolutely.
Because you can always excel wherever you are today.
Yes.
So I love that.
And I am so glad you said that, because when I was talking about people thinking that fulfillment and contentment are the same, no, it means that I am grateful for what I have. I'm grateful for where I am, but I know that I'm moving forward in this life journey. And so we excel, we propel, we move forward, we continue going.
Yep. Okay, now I got another question here. It's got a number in it. I love numbers. My undergraduate degree was in math, and I don't get to use it ever. So in a time when 66% of people are detached from work, how do we as leaders get them reattached and engaged again? That and engaged again part is so essential. How do we get them reattached to work and engaged again?
Right. So let's start first with the stat, right? 66%. I don't know if a lot of people understand how many people that is. That means that if there are 3 of us at lunch one day, 2 people at that table are disengaged.
And the other one's talking and doesn't notice.
Right. That's exactly right. So when we're talking about the number of people who are just walking around aimless, this is the majority of the people that we are working with, serving with, in relationship with. That is concerning. And when you were talking about the country where the measure is happiness, I'm totally on board with that. We got to bring that here.
I'm
right?
telling you. We could start, you could start with your neighborhood. You could start with your house. Okay. We're going to develop a happiness index for our house. I've been kind of doing that without realizing it. I just look at it. All right. Is this a thing? Such and such an opportunity comes up. Will it make me happy?
Yes.
Will it give me a reason to be happy? Will it give me joy? Does it include grace? If the answer is no, never mind.
Never mind is exactly right. That's exactly right. And
So
now, go ahead.
Go ahead. I've got another question, but I can wait.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say, when we're talking about getting people engaged again, it means sitting down and having the honest and sometimes hard conversation and asking them, why are you unhappy? And taking action based on that. For some of us, we're in relationships out of fear because we are afraid to go forward. For some of us, we're in jobs that we absolutely despise, but we are counting on that paycheck. It is spent before we even get it in 2 weeks, right? For some of us, we have no idea what our purpose is in life. Our skills, our gifts, and talents have always been in employment for somebody else's benefit and gain, and we don't even know how to pull out of that. So the first thing we have to do is we have to take self-assessment and ask the question, how can I be happy? How can I actually like getting up in the morning, and then being courageous enough to make the necessary changes, even when they're hard.
So first you have to figure out what it is you need to be happy, and then you have to figure out what it is you're willing to do to get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, now that sounds to me an awful lot like the title to your book. So would you tell us some more about Live Life on Fire?
Absolutely. Live Life on Fire, the ultimate guide to a successful life full of peace, joy, and fulfillment. It is a cheat sheet on how to answer the question, why am I here? What am I living for? Because, like I said, most people will give in the checklist, you want stuff, and then you'll be happy. Okay, once we've gotten that, now what? And so I break the book down into 4 parts: breathing, meditation, being, and flow, so that you ultimately come to a place of living in awe. And I use examples from every area of life because we are holistic beings, right? We have the business side, we have our personal side, we have our interaction with our communities, we have interactions with just us, right? And so I am walking the reader through how to get to that state of being where we are totally and 100% engaged in every aspect of our being to live this life that is authentic and genuine for us and allows us to be a light for other people. So when they see us in this joyful state, they come and say, "What are you doing? I want some of that."
I'll have what she's having.
Yes. That's right. I'll have what she's having.
Well, since I became aware of New Thought and started understanding that responsibility is something you can take on yourself instead of just having it forced upon you, I have begun to understand that there are an awful lot of people in the world who will have what I'm having.
Yes.
And not that many I'd be willing to order from.
That is the truth. I talk to so many people in a day, and many of them are high performing. They have crushed every goal that they ever put their mind to. And now some of them are being encouraged. And this is not a judgment, this is a statement. They are being encouraged to skip past the part of looking within and finding that internal joy, to utilizing and experimenting with various mind altering substances to get to that place, that high. And I talk to them and I tell them, there are no shortcuts to this. There is a reason that we have a life experience. There are certain things that we must go through and journey through to get everything that we ever wanted out of this life. And it is hard. And I know sometimes it's hard. I'm not discounting that. That's why I shared my own journey with my medical issues. But it is worth getting to this place of being able to tap into your own intuitive knowing and well-being, to be of service not to just self but others. And that service has to be more than offering them some controlled narcotic. It really has to be something more than that.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question about this endeavor that you're involved in, and you might want to close your eyes and think a minute, but I want to know what is 2 questions there, and they're barbell questions, one versus the other. What is the biggest challenge that you, as a teacher, as a minister, as an attorney, as a leader, encounter when you come up against one of these high functioning addicts? Because that's what you just described, was a high functioning addict.
I mean, and that's the truth of it. And part of it is we have to talk about this distinction between happy and joy, because many of these people have the financial resource to keep this going forever. And they confuse having experiences, very expensive experiences, with having joyful experiences. And whenever I try to take them out of that place and say, let's say that there was no money and you couldn't go, they go back to, well, during COVID, I couldn't go anywhere. No, this is beyond COVID because you were still in the comfort of your home. And some of you, if we're going to tell it, still did get out. You just were real good at hiding where you were. So we have to first strip us, because it had to happen to me too. We had to strip us all of this idea of I can buy my way out of this.
Yeah.
Right? Then we have to strip us out of happy is joy. And then if they are willing, because some people aren't willing to accept either of those conditions, then we can move to the next thing of, okay, now let's talk about all the things you're involved in, and let's determine what is actually consistent with your life purpose and the things that aren't. Now, this trips folks up because it tripped me up too. By the time I started working with Railroad, I had eliminated things that were not positive in my life. That was how I determined what was consistent with my life purpose up to that point. But then I had to look at, okay, it can be positive, it can be great, I can have fun doing it, but is it propelling me? Is it excelling in my life? And if the answer to that is no, then it has to go.
Okay, so here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
If happy is that big shiny Mylar balloon that you're looking at,
yeah,
then joy is the air that makes it move, that fills it up and makes it move.
Well said. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Okay, so now here's the next question.
Okay.
Wait, let me ask this because I understand, but other people might not. Are you done answering that question before I give you the next one?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Because what we're basically saying is it can't be paid for. This is not something that can be
buy yourself. You can't buy your way out of it.
No.
And that's a real hard thing for people who have money and who've always had money to be able to understand.
Yes.
So the next one is, what is the, I think I know the answer, but I want you to have a chance to talk about it. What is the biggest joy, the biggest thrill, the biggest, oh boy, give me some more of that you encounter when you're working with folks who have not yet learned about the difference between the balloon and the air that's inside it?
So there are 2 points that are really exciting. The first point is when we sit down and say, yes, I'm willing to do the work. Because that's huge when you're willing to make that commitment, because it's scary, and we're trusting one another. So that is a joy. And then the second point is when they realize that they are going to need ongoing support even after the initial part of the work is done.
Oh, yeah. That's when they discover it's a road, not a destination.
Yes, it is. Yes. And who that person is in your life may change. Because once Ro and I finished with let's scale this down and clean this up, because that took a couple of years, right? Mm-hmm. Then I transitioned over to working with Rev Jill, who does what she calls soul coaching. She's a soul activist. And so every 2 weeks, we're meeting and going through everything that I'm involved in and what needs to come off, and doing the prayer work and the breath work and the meditations. And we're doing all of that. It is ongoing. It does not stop, particularly with the work that I do with other people. And that happens, and it's joyful as well, because once a person goes through this and they are looking better, they are feeling better, and people are coming to them and want to work with them, I tell them, I was like, and it is imperative that you have somebody to work with so that you stay sharp for yourself and them.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful, because that means that it's propagating.
Yes, absolutely. I like that. Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to ask you. I have 4 questions. Well, I actually have 5, and I'm going to ask you the first one first. Questions that I ask everybody, and the first one is there anything that you want to talk about with respect to your ministry, your life, what you're doing, and who you're being that I haven't asked you about?
Yes, but to be fair to you, we've been talking about it all the time. And I would like to share with your listeners the blueprint for living a life on fire.
Absolutely.
Right. So the first step is we want to focus on the people and not the process. A lot of times we get caught up with, again, checking boxes. Most of us like lists because it's easy. And it's great when we have a pattern. But the problem is, once we have gotten used to it, when it comes time for a change, we are resistant to that because it's been working. And so if it's not working anymore, then that means there's something wrong with me. No, it just means that you've grown, beloved, and it's time to make a change. And what's that saying? The teacher will appear when the student is ready. We have to trust that that will happen. The second thing is we have to start working ourselves into the ground. We have to unstretch ourselves thin. Every quarter, go through everything that you're involved in, and something should come off. Because I promise you, you picked up at least one or two things. And it's unconscious because it was fun. Somebody asked you to do it. It was supposed to be temporary, and it never is, right? It, something has to give because when we're stressed, when we're overburdened, that manifests in our body as dis-ease, illness. And we don't realize it, but the people around us who are close to us, they see it. And sometimes we are expressing ourselves all over them in a way that is not necessarily positive. The third thing is we've got to leave it all on the field. Just like when we play the sports and once the game is over, we shake hands, we talk about it, and then we move on to the next thing. We got to do that same thing in our lives. We've got to stop beating up on ourselves about shoulda, coulda, woulda. Once we have evaluated, we've got to leave it there and move on because life is calling. It's calling us. And there are people who need us, but we can't show up the best way that we can if we're always looking backward. And then last is living a model life. And that model life requires us to create our own list that creates joy, creates peace and fulfillment within our lives. And we don't have to go out evangelizing. People are going to see it and come to us. And we share that with humility, with authenticity, and with joy. So that's what I would like your audience to hear.
Outstanding. I'm delighted. Now I've got 4 questions left, and you heard them Thursday, so you got an edge over most of the other people who've ever been on my show, but you still have to answer them. So the first one is, what does your ministry, what does what you do, what does who you be, how does that encourage, incite, activate, pick your own verb, conscious evolution?
So the first thing is it requires us to take honest stock of who we are, what we are, how we serve. Once we do that, then we can get in alignment with the Christ frequency. And that allows us to live the life that we came here to live. And this is beyond vocation, right? This is truly empowering others to do the same. But that happens when we can be honest with ourselves. And once enough of us do it, then we automatically evolve and everyone else is taken up with us.
Yeah. All righty then. I'll have an answer to that. Okay, here's the next question. How, and it sounds like the same one, but it's not. How does your ministry, what you do, who you are, how you be, how does that encourage, unveil, reveal, release, pick your own verb, world peace?
So continuing on with what I said, once enough of us have elevated and consciousness has shifted and is lifting, That goes across the entire globe. And it no longer makes sense why we're fighting, why we are not celebrating difference instead of pounding down on it. And we want to make sense. Humans like order, we like reason. And so we start to change the way that we function in the world, the way we talk to one another. We put down our arms and then we link in arms. We have an opportunity for world peace. And it starts with each of us. That's our responsibility, ourselves. Because other people will see it and then they want it too, and they will do it. And then we will have a chain reaction, a mass evolutionary event.
All righty. Put that on the list. Okay, now here's the next one. Now, this one takes a little imagination. Supposing that every single detail, every person, every relationship, every event, every activity, every encounter, every thought goes exactly the way you want it to go. 10 years from now, what does your ministry look like?
Oh my goodness, 10 years from now, if everything goes exactly the way that I envision, I will be on more screens in more homes, on more awesome shows like this one, sharing this message of peace, joy, and fulfillment, and that the world has shifted for the better because of it. That's my goal.
I love it. Okay.
Yes.
And that's perfect because the last question is, will you come back?
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
I've got my calendar right here.
Okay.
Let me get my calendar up here and tell you what the very next date is so that we can get you booked in right now. Because I don't let anybody escape if I can. You know, as my grandma used to say, I might be crazy, but I'm not stupid. All right. The very next date that is open is the 27th of, the 10th of September of 2024.
September 3rd, 2024. Let's do it.
September 3rd. Okay. All right. So I've got you in, which is wonderful. Hold on just a second. I got to move this little thing over here so it goes where it's supposed to go. Okay. And I want to tell everybody to be sure and come back next week, because next week we have Reverend Renee Laboa, whose ministry is called Life in Balance. And this lady is so cool. She's just a hoot and a half. And I try to, give people as much advance warning as I can. Bring a box of tissues and a towel for laughing, and be here tomorrow, next Tuesday, so you don't miss Reverend Renee Laboa. And thank you so much, Reverend Lynita Mitchell-Blackwel, for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me today. I so appreciate you.
Oh, all righty then. So we are out of here now. Have a wonderful week.